All right. Hi, everyone, and welcome to today's session. My name is Joel Comerford. I'm a business consultant here at LawPath, and I am your webinar host. Today's webinar is Client Conflict. Here's what to do before things escalate. Thank you all so much for attending. I know December can be very much either only really two things: stressing out trying to get as much things done so you can enjoy your holiday, or calm, relaxed planning, likely working through the Christmas period because you're an entrepreneur and you don't know what sleep or rest is. Whatever it may be, thank you so much for joining us today. If you can last an hour today, I would be impressed. We know how busy a lot of people's schedules are, so thank you so much for attending. Now, whether you're a sole trader, a growing startup, or a small business managing multiple clients, chances are at some point you've faced a situation where a client didn't pay, or the expectations didn't line up, or perhaps the project just went off the rails. It's certainly stressful. That's why we're running this session today, to give you real practical tools to avoid these headaches and handle conflict early, and if needed, escalate things professionally and legally without blowing up a relationship or cash flow, or potentially ruining a reputation, either for yourself or your client. Now, before we dive in, just a quick overview for anyone who is new today. At LawPath, we're Australia's largest legal and accounting platform for small businesses. We've helped over 600,000 businesses register, stay compliant, and save over 500 million in legal and accounting fees. We do this by giving you on-demand access to lawyers, accountants, and over 500 plus legal, employment, and compliance documents, all in one place at a fixed cost. Now, today we are lucky to be joined by Mark Tui. Mark is a senior commercial lawyer with over 28 years of experience here at LawPath, and he is across multiple industries like technology, media, and crypto, just to say a few, a tiny, tiny amount. Mark's going to walk us through real life strategies around using contracts, communicating clearly, and stepping in before a situation becomes costly and results in a nasty legal battle. So stick around to the end because there will be a Q&A for anyone who's new. If you do have questions, we prefer that you put the questions in the Q&A box as opposed to the chat, because if other things pop up in the chat, you may lose your spot and we may overlook your question. I will be sending an email out later on as well with all of the slides from today, plus a YouTube link. So again, you will get everything from today in an email afterwards. So don't stress about having to leave early and missing out on anything in particular. I will also go through a small segment where we can talk about how LawPath's plans can help. It's good that you can come here and get free information and help you prepare for anything, whether it's something you're dealing with now or in the future, but also it's also nice to have support as well. So if you've come into this webinar hoping to see what LawPath can do, and you've been keeping an eye on us for a while, and you feel like we might be a really good potential provider for support, whether you're starting out in the middle of your business's life or ready to sell or liquidate or whatever it may be, go ahead and throw a yes in the chat if you like, and I'll take down some names. I'll also ask again later on once you've had a bit more of the presentation to soak in into your head. But yeah, we're here to help whenever. We will be having a skeleton crew of lawyers and accountants working over the Christmas period as well. So if you want to get ahead of everything before the new year, we are here to offer support. Now, before I hand over to Mark, I just wanted to go over why today's session matters. So, running a business is hard, but when a client doesn't pay you or ghosts you or disputes the work you've done, that stress can snowball fast, and we see it every day here at LawPath. And for many business owners, it's not the work that's the issue, it's the misunderstanding, it's the lack of documentation, or the assumptions on both sides that leads to conflict. 'Cause a lot of the times, communication can break down very quickly if you are a busy entrepreneur. So the truth is, these situations don't need to end up in court. If you know how to intervene early or communicate clearly and back yourself up with the right tools, you can likely avoid a lot of risks and damage to your reputation. So today, Mark will be covering why client conflicts happen and how to spot red flags early. how to use your contracts properly to avoid misunderstandings, email templates and strategies for handling non-payment professionally, what to do, what documents for me to use and why they matter legally, when to escalate and how to do it without damaging your business, and then also some practical tools you can start using today to protect yourself. So again, thank you all for joining. Stay tuned. If you do have some burning questions, throw it in the Q&A and we will address that later on. But for now, I will go ahead and pass you over to Mark. Thanks, Mark.
Thank you very much for that very good summary of the things we'll cover today. So what we don't want is incidents or conflicts to escalate when, if you act early, you may be able to calm things down. At the end of the day, what you really want is to get paid. It's about money. It shouldn't be about trying to have a fight. It's about getting that money that you're owed because of the work you've done. So here's some of the things to do when things start to look a little bumpy. So first, go back to your contract. Read it again. What was agreed? What did you say you were going to do? And what are their expectations? Look at your old emails, messages, any records you've got, and then try and understand their perspective. Why are they feeling the way they're feeling? How did you get in this two different paths? And then if there is an issue, just talk to the client. They're a human. They've got their own hopes, aspirations, their own pressures. Just go and talk to them and see what can we do to start spending money or time on it. As I said, it's often miscommunication. Too often, I see this particularly in, say, a software agreement. You've got someone that's very skilled in the area of software development. They talk about things like APIs and libraries and iteration and all sorts of terminology that has very precise meaning. The person on the other side may be an expert in their field, but they don't know much about coding. And so you've got someone people talking almost two different languages. And the very powerful, very precise message that was delivered by the developer is completely misunderstood. And also, developers are often not very skilled in the area of commerce. So there might be very useful communication coming back the other way about what's needed, how it should look, how it should feel. They don't get that either. So talking through things in advance, and then if the problems come up, talk through those as well. Another time when people are not paying, it's simply because they can't. And if you work with them, most people are genuine and honest, in my experience. They will pay, but they just might need a little bit of extra time, or they can pay this much this week and a little bit next week. And then after that, they'll be able to give you the whole amount. Talk to them, listen, and that's one way to get your money. Disputes about the delivery or quality, well, unfortunately, sometimes these are small things, but once things go off the rails, that miscommunication really starts to have extra importance or extra effect, and everyone goes to their trench and starts lobbing grenades at each other and nasty statements or whatever. Also, try and keep up the communication, just letting people know you haven't forgotten. The job is taking longer than expected because of the changed instructions or the extra feature that was requested, or whatever the reason is, supply chain issues. Talking to them, letting them know you haven't forgotten them. Their priorities do matter to you. You'll do your best to meet their expectations. The various phases that things can go through, you can have this light touch communication, That's where, beginning off, you just, in the beginning, I mean, you just start checking in, understanding what's going on. Can you just tell me how you see things? Questions like that, open questions, and listen. A communication is not only about speaking, it's also about listening. If needed, you can clarify the expectations. We thought we had to deliver this by this timeline. We've done that. Sometimes just setting things on paper will refine the issues. You can also go back to the contract and point out what the contract actually said. But of course, as you're doing all this, you're also building up a file that may be useful if things get worse and escalate, which we hope they don't. So when they won't pay, let's have a look at those issues. So first of all, check your invoice. Is it accurate? Does it have all the right details? The line items, are they set out clearly? Does it refer to a purchase order? Things that'll help clarify things on their end. Maybe if they're a larger client, it may be just lost between departments. You can send a friendly reminder. You can also provide different payment options. That may help. Or even just dig into, what are you unhappy about? Are you waiting for some revisions? Is that why you haven't paid? Are you unclear about the next steps? Approach it there again, ready to listen. The common reasons for non-payment, we'll skip through these. You can read all these slides later in detail, but I'll skip through the main things. I've already touched on cash flow delays. It can be things about quality or delivery concerns. They might think it wasn't completed as promised. Maybe it's been completed exactly as promised. You just need to explain that. There could be some administration bottlenecks. The invoice was lost. If you come out of the blocks and you start attacking them, that's not the way to figure out if it's just a document that's got lost between staff or between departments. Go in there and have a cooperative, friendly discussion. And the old saying, you attract more flies with honey than you do with vinegar. The expectation gaps, I've talked about that. It might be on pricing or deliverables. Maybe there was a shift in the priorities. Maybe they changed things around. You've done your best to meet those altered priorities. There could be some issues there to resolve. It could mean just the relationship starting to break down. There was a harsh conversation, a harsh email, something like that. Try and avoid that. The priority again is money in your account. So whatever you need to do to get that money into your account, because you're a business, you've got bills to pay, you've got wages to pay, and it's all about money in your account. It's not about winning arguments or proving you're right. It's about that money into your account. Email framework here, you can start off with a friendly reminder. If things still don't, you haven't jolted it free, then you can send an email with more questions trying to clarify what the issue is. If that still doesn't work, you can then step it up to the next level and say, look, we really do need to be paid. This is our final notice. And then you may have to take it that next step where you start to take some sort of action. And we'll talk about the different action you can take later. This is the outcomes that you may get. So they may respond and be cooperative. In that case, you just negotiate and say, well, fine, we don't expect all the payment now, but we'll expect payment over 3 weeks, whatever, or by the end of the month, whatever the terms are. You respond, you cooperate, you communicate. They see that you're someone they can do business with. You're listening, you're trying to understand, you're trying to provide a good service. It may be that they respond, and there is a bit of an issue there. You may have to realign their expectations. And I find the best thing, and I give this advice to clients often and see good results more times than not, and that is try to meet in person with the decision maker, not the accounts payable person, but the person that's going to make the decisions on whether that payment is made in the other team, whether it's the CEO, the CFO. Try and meet with them in person and try and meet with them in an informal setting. Invite them for a coffee, a meal, a drink. Um, Read the personality. There is a person on the other side, as I mentioned earlier. Find out how you can best relate to that person. And the reason for meeting in person rather than over a video call, first of all, there's something, we're humans. We've evolved to be together, to communicate in that way. There's something less effective, I think, with video. I say now I'm doing a webinar, but that's the way the modern world is. But really, if you can get together in that setting, informal setting, you'll find if it's over a drink or over a meal, you talk about what you're doing over Christmas, your priorities, how work's going, family issues, hobbies. You become a person, and they're more likely to try and meet your payment once they see you're a person they actually like you and relate to you in that human level. And you also, that extra time, it gets you onto those other topics, and it just moves beyond we need to be paid straight away. We've done the job, pay up now. It's a whole different process. If they refuse to pay, of course, then you can start to think about a final notice or a letter of demand or talking to your lawyer, and we can help with that process.
Hey,
There
Mark,
is,
just forgive me, just real quick. What we're usually finding a lot of the time with our clientele when they have issues such as what you're mentioning, it
mm-hmm.
always comes down to just not having the right amount of information within each contract. So it's overestimating their understanding of each document. How often do you find this is a reoccurring issue, especially since this is something you're at the forefront of?
Sure. It, it's the whole issue. Legal contracts, people misunderstand them. They think they're important for some magical reason because they're legal. They're not important. They're stuff that used to fill filing cabinets. Now they fill data centers. They're only a clarification of what the deal was. That's their real importance. And they're what you are going to be paid, what you have to do to get paid, and when you're going to get paid. And the art of being a contract lawyer is simply to try and remove as much ambiguity as you can out of the wording and to set up simple little mechanisms, not complicated, confusing, um, like heretofore and all that sort of jargon. It's simply this will be delivered in 3 milestones. Payment for milestone 1 will be this, payment for milestone 2. That's a proper contract. That's why we have contracts. That's the art of being a lawyer, is making it really clear what has to be done and what you'll be paid. Next slide.
Brilliant. Thanks, mate.
So why your contract matters? Well, I've touched on it already. Payment terms and the scope. So what you're going to be paid and what you've got to do to get paid. Often, and this is where conflict creeps in sometimes, halfway through a job, there's an extra thing that's wanted. And in my contracts with service agreements, particularly the master service agreements I always include a clause on additional services, and I link additional services to a rate card. So if you want those additional services, we don't have to discuss the rates. They're already at the back. You want us to travel to do a site visit. You need, if we do travel, all the terms of travel time, uh, minimum call out, uh, the hourly rate, uh, any after hours, all those sorts of things. They're all in there. And then, of course, we add in there a CPI increase, which is very helpful. You don't have to go back and have another friction point in your relationship. The document's got it already. You simply, after the CPI increase, you simply send out your invoice with whatever it is, 3%, 3.5% increase in your rate card rates. That's a well-built, robust agreement. Of course, it can have dispute clauses in there, but the number of disputes I've seen over the 3 decades of working as a lawyer, I've seen lots and lots of disputes. The number I've ever seen taken to court is 0. People just tend to sort these things out because it gets very costly, and I'll talk more about the costs later. And there's processes, there's ways we as contract lawyers can help you try and de-escalate. So I'm not a litigation lawyer at all. I work with contracts to try and resolve the issues and get your money. Of course, you need to terminate sometimes. It's just not working. And the best thing everyone can do is just walk away and figuring out what that means. And often that can be a thing like a deed of settlement. You're going to pay this, you'll get that. And we document that again, trying to get rid of any ambiguity. So here's some examples. You could say for payment terms, real clear, simple, uncomplicated English. Invoices are due within 14 days. Late payments incur a 2% monthly fee. Milestone 1 must be paid before work continues. Real simple stuff there. Same with the scope of work. In the interest of time, I'll let you read these yourself. And simple, plain English statements, that's a good legal contract. Next slide, please. I've already touched on this a little bit. Don't start saying things you can't unsay. Don't jump straight to the aggressive. You breached the contract, or you haven't paid 14 days late. We're sick of this. None of that's going to get you the money. Talk to them. As I said, find out what the issues are. And here's just a psychological fact of what often happens with people and why you need to go in softly. Too often, people go to their trenches, and it's because they each genuinely don't accurately remember what the contract said. One of the things about human memory, it's very frail, it's very fallible. We don't remember what happened. We remember what we remember about what happened. And each time we go back and remember that, we may be having a memory of a memory of a memory. And just like when we photocopy things and you start to make repeated copies of a copy, the clarity starts to change. They may think something was going to happen and they genuinely believe it, but it's not because they're lying. It's not because they're trying to cheat you. It's just that's how humans are. But if you can go back to a clearly written statement of work in a contract and say, these are the points that were said, that can often defuse the situation. And if you've missed something yourself, it's a chance for you to say, oh, look, we have missed that. I'm so sorry. Most people will accept an apology. They say when doctors are often sued for medical negligence, it's not because they made a mistake. It's because they wouldn't acknowledge the mistake and they wouldn't say sorry. Often that's all people want to hear. It's already bad enough. Their relative suffered or died or whatever. Making a doctor's life or the surgeon's life miserable will not change things. They will accept it, but they just need to say, look, we've messed that up. We should have done that. We haven't. let me fix it up. Give me a few days. I'll have that fixed for straight away, and I apologize. That will often get you your money, and sometimes that will be the foundation of a very good relationship going forward. Because I'll say, this person's honest. They didn't lie to me. They didn't try to pretend, the emperor's clothing. We've done everything, and it's clear they haven't. So just try and take that approach and go in softly and learn what you don't know. So we're starting a new year. Perhaps a good business resolution to be think about what we're going to do with our contracts. How can we do them better? Again, people misunderstand contracts and think you need dozens of them. And we've talked about we're in a library of 500 legal agreements. But most business, depending on your type of business, your legal toolbox is probably going to be about somewhere a dozen to, at the very most, 20 legal documents. What those documents are will change according to your business, but it's not massive amounts. It's worth investing in really good documents that avoid arguments, that are very clear. Because one dispute with a client can waste weeks. And while you're all emotionally upset and spending money on legal fees and all that, you're not running your business. So the cost is in, not only didn't you get paid, but you're starting to spend money as well. You're losing business opportunities. You're losing the chance to make profits somewhere else. So get the contracts you need for your business, get them done well, invest in them. They are the core of running your business. A good contract should not be an expense. A good contract should find new ways to make revenue for your business. So things like additional work. How do you charge for that? How do you build that mechanism in? Recurring revenue. How do you find a chance to build a product around your services? Give it a name. People, they find it hard to buy a service. But if you give it a product name and you say, we could do this for you, you'd be surprised at the willingness of clients to say, oh, yes, we do need that. That would be really helpful. I have one cybersecurity client, and I have a number, but one particular, I kept saying to him, we need to find some recurring revenue for your business. So we're not just doing the contract. I'm trying to help them reshape their earning potential, their revenue potential. And recurring revenue, because it's the same client, it's got no advertising costs, it's got no sales time. It's really cream. It's extra revenue for very little extra work. And it was in about the fourth meeting where we were working through the document together, it dawned on him, and he said, oh, yeah, we could do something. And we played around and we came up with the concept of a security audit. And then we had to frame that contract. How does that work? That service, that product. And of course, boards are very concerned now about if their business gets a cybersecurity breach, then what did you do as a director? Did you fail the shareholders? Have you leaked information? There can be all sorts of serious issues arise. So, of course, if that happens and you can't stop a lightning strike, if there is a lightning strike, the answer to it would be, well, 2 months ago, we had our cybersecurity team do a cybersecurity audit. They do one every 6 months, and they said things were in good shape. We'd done everything we needed, or maybe the report was there was a couple of things we needed to work on, and they gave us a plan, and we're implementing those. Unfortunately, we got caught out here, but some of the work we've already done reduced the damage. That sort of thing is solid gold. People will pay for that. Directors will pay money to find out, to make their life better, to get some butt covering Um, it's just human nature. So what can you do in your business? How can you do recurring revenue? That's cybersecurity is just one thing. What about if it's you're doing online marketing? Would they like a marketing report that shows the uh, the value they're getting out of their spend, trend analysis, suggestions for new methods they can try, and projections of what they may get from those things? Find a product and um, unleash your potential for extra revenue.
Excuse me, Mark. We
Mm-hmm.
have a often at times we will have newer clientele come along and they'll say, hey, look, I'm a bit too small. My business is too small. I've only got two or three clients. I've only been operating for maybe 18 to 12 months. I'm going to make my own contracts through uh, ChatGPT or maybe Microsoft Word or whatever it may be. This is
Mm-hmm.
every day in and day out. And obviously, we leave everyone to their own devices, but we try to convey as much information in relation to what you're discussing. But would you offer any advice to someone who feels like they may be too small in relation to having the right contracts?
Yep. Um, it's all about clarity and communication. So when you're too small not to have disputes, um, you're setting up a business, you're going to spend money on marketing. Um, Getting good contracts is a sensible business investment. And the one contract can be just reworked over and over and over. What you need to do though is get it structured for your business. And that's where, for the moment, and AI is learning very fast, as we all know, at the moment it's full of information. It's not very wise. It doesn't know how to apply that in a business setting. It it has never really seen disputes, as in lived through them, having that meal with that person or a drink, trying to resolve it. All that stuff all that human stuff that we bring to, and that should all end up in your document. That all those lessons. So I'd say to anyone, you don't need to spend a lot, but there is a few things you just need to get right.
Thanks, Mark.
So when a dispute comes up, stick to the facts, try dates, deliverables, amounts, use bullet points. That really, people don't read these days, they skim. So that helps clarify things. It also helps you sort out in your head. Avoid emotion, take the frustration out of it. You want to get paid. Just stay professional. Confirm agreements in writing. Okay, so you said that you'll pay X this week, Y the next week, and we'll get the rest in a lump sum the third week. Send it over in an email, get them to confirm that. You need to keep records, contracts, store them away, keep folders, go into your drive, create folders, store them in there. Um, of course, emails, try and always, I sometimes send emails to myself simply. It might be a file note reminding me about an important discussion I had with someone. It's just all there. It's a library I can go back to later if I ever need. And most times I never will, but it's just there. It's a handy little uh, memory tool. Um, Make sure you know the deliveries, the drafts that you've delivered, version history, those sorts of things, meeting notes, and of course, payment records. Keep a track of all your invoices. Make sure you number them well. So you know if invoice 402 has been paid, but 403 is still outstanding. Next one, please. Here's some notes on how to write an email. I'll let you read those afterwards. But it's the obvious stuff. Put the information in there that needs to be there. Again, don't write more point. Here's useful information, useful information, useful information, and then close. Now, if things do escalate, and hopefully they won't, but if you ever need to come to us and say, look, can you help with this problem? I'm just not getting paid. I'm owed whatever the amount of money is. Um, Things like having your emails, a good record of all the discussions, uh, your contracts, any attachments that were sent out there. You may even want to put together a bit of a timeline of what's happened in the matter, and then all of that, you can send that to us. We can use that to then advise you on ways you may be able to work to fix it without spending too much money. So that's back to avoiding court. And there's ways to do that. So the reason why would you want to avoid court? Well, it's costly. It really does. You know, the moment something goes to litigation, you're looking somewhere probably north of 10,000. It depends. It can go into, the big disputes, of course, go into the hundreds of thousands or even the millions. But it is costly. It's also slow. The courts, although probably just about all contracts don't go to court, but there's millions and millions of contracts out there, and a small percentage do, and the courts are clogged even with that small percentage. It takes time. Another reason is once you go to court, it's public. It's on the public record, and you'll still end up with the smell of smoke, even if you were not the guilty party. And it can be just damaging and can upset your team and upset your business flow. It's something to be avoided if at all possible. There's a few ways to do it. Mediation, where I know I've done this a number of times in the last few months, just sit down with both parties and say, look, can you explain to me your perspective? And then I go to the other side and say, can you explain your perspective? Now you've heard each other. Can we talk through those things? That mediator, having a third person in the room, if the personal approach has not worked, sometimes that'll just calm things down and everyone speaks politely. And I try and act as a referee, not taking sides, just saying, look, let's talk it through. What are the issues? How can we fix it? Sometimes it turns more into conciliation, where I might say, well, how about you do this? And would you be happy with that? And we work through it that way. If that still doesn't work, another way where you still avoid courts is to go through an arbitration system where you get a professional arbitrator. And they're like they can issue a decision, and that decision can be legally binding. So those other things are not to that level. They're just trying to work through things. So yeah, let's get to the next slide, please. So knowing when to escalate. So if you have to, if they go completely silent on you, or they start to get quite aggressive, and no matter what you do, they just keep delaying. There's nothing you can do, or they start to do things and you think, oh, this is not going well. There's something wrong here. They're trying to steal our IP, or they're trying to do things like poach our clients or poach our staff, those sorts of things. Or if their demands, 1 week they say the issue is this, and 2 weeks later their demands are completely different. All those things, they're tough to work with. And unfortunately, I see a lot of those behaviors at times. If we do need to escalate, the path would be first as a final notice. So please pay within X number of days. This is your last notice. If that doesn't work, then you can come to us. We can put out what's called a letter of demand, a more formal process. If that is still not answered properly, you can go off to debt collectors, or we can issue what's called a statutory demand, which is a very formal legal document. As long as there's no dispute about the amount, we can send that out, and they've got 21 days to pay. And if they don't, you can take it down to the magistrate, and the magistrate will issue an order that they must pay immediately. He can see the risk and the reward, and I'll let you read through those. There's reminders, follow-up calls, payment plans, and it steps through. It has relationship impact, and you can see the outcomes that are likely there. Just recapping on some of the things I've already said, we're using the pole driver method here, saying it over and over, but Winston Churchill said he likes to say something, come back and hit it again, and then he likes to come back and give it an almighty bang. So stay professional, avoid public disputes, keep your documentation clean. Your emails don't need to have accusations or nasty statements. They just need to set out what needs to be done or what has been done. And always think, when you write something, write it from the point of view someone may ever read it in the future. Maybe it's a year in the future, and they don't know any of the backstory. Would it have enough clarity in there for them to understand? And would they think that you acted professionally? Or would that something you say, accusations, nasty statements, get them offside and they say, well, I probably wouldn't have paid you anyway, with that sort of attitude. Clarity, of course, is extremely important. Some final takeaways. Resolve things early. Get in there, start talking. If it starts to escalate, the documentation is what's going to protect you, and don't go straight from 0 to 100. Step it up. Be slow to move, slow to lock yourself in. And by that, I don't mean delay unwisely, just only go from step 1 to step 2 to step 3 and think about each step before you take it. I'll hand over now to Joel, and he can tell you more about how LawPath can help.
Thank you so much, Mark. And thank you everyone who's still with us today. Mark, it's nice to finally have you join us. We know you're very busy, and unfortunately there is a cutoff at 1 o'clock, so we'll try to get through the Q&A in one moment. But yeah, it's nice to finally get your wisdom on here. It's awesome. Now, I just want to go back over Mark's bio real quick, because obviously we were pushing it through early at the start to get things going. But Mark's extensive legal and business experience has been gained over 28 years. That legal knowledge is reinforced by solid commercial experience gained through acting as a major senior executive, general counsel, co-founder, director, and company secretary of numerous entities. He is also a technologist with blockchain inventions, holding registered patents in the US and EU. And for the past decade, he has also been a university lecturer in a Master of Computer Science course on the laws surrounding cryptocurrency and blockchain compliance. Research papers Mark has co-written on smart contracts have won major international awards, and Mark also has a particularly strong interest in the deployment of AI. Now, without sounding too cocky or boisterous, the wonderful thing about this experience and the webinars is it's a way for us to give everyone a little bit of a taste of what you would be expecting were you to ever consider LawPath for support. And on our legal advice plan, you can have Mark as your go-to lawyer. So I wanted to introduce you all a little bit more to Mark, just to let you know that there's a lot more behind a couple of sentences and paragraphs. Mark, yeah, it's always remarkable to see the amount of experience you have and how down to earth you are when it comes to your knowledge and information. And guys, you can also be privy to all this as well moving into 2026. If you have some strong, ambitious goals, if you actually wanted to take your business into a higher level, from where it is currently operating, we can provide that for you. As Mark mentioned earlier, even just having specific details in your contracts updated can push you into a higher degree with specific clientele and whatnot. So, and we see it every day. We have clients who are almost shooting themselves in the foot because they don't feel like they can get a leg up. We give them a free legal or accounting consultation. We help put them back on the right track. And just creating that clarity for our clients helps them see where they are and what they can do moving forward. Um, we have all of our plans. I have no doubt in my mind that everyone on the call today knows our plans. If anyone is interested in knowing a bit more, just go ahead and drop a yes or your number or whatever it may be in the chat. I will contact you afterwards. Just to give you a bit of insight as to what LawPath can do more. I like to call clients. I like to ask them questions. I'm very inquisitive. I like to know. Well, the most important thing for me personally, and a lot of my associates in our division, is we like to know what Australian businesses are doing and how you're doing it. And if there is a room for us to offer insight, we will. We're not always necessarily expecting you guys to come on board as clients, but if we can give you details and enough information for you to ever consider us as someone you can go to, then we have done our job well. So we have our document library, we have our legal advice plan, we have accounting and tax. We like to keep everything under one roof for all of our clients so you don't have to go to different areas. All of our prices are fixed. You're not paying hourly fees. You're not paying anything over $6,000 or $7,000 per year with LawPath if you're using our plans at a fixed rate as well. So look, I'll just go ahead and leave it at that. If anyone's interested in learning a little bit more, I'll leave it to your discrepancy. Yeah, let's go ahead and move into the Q&A. Now, Mark, if you don't mind, I'll just go ahead and read these out to you.
Sure. Thank you.
Nathan Thomas has said, we have a disagreement at the moment with a client. And when I reviewed the agreement, my staff only got a photo of the client's signature on the last page. Do we have any legal to stand on?
Probably we need to look at it more deeply, but the contract itself is not the agreement, as in legally, an agreement is formed when you have an offer and you have acceptance and you have this other concept called consideration. Now, the law says, and this is very old law, so it uses unusual language. It says it can be as simple as handing someone an acorn. If you do that, I'll give you this acorn. That's the consideration. So as long as there's offer and acceptance and consideration, then you probably have a deal. We need to look at all that and a little bit of analysis. The fact you've got a signature is nice, whether it's done with pen and ink or a photo, that is only further evidence of whether there was offer and acceptance.
Thank you, Nathan. We have Bashir who's thrown in two questions here. Can we hold on to resources if they refuse to pay or until we reach a settlement? For example, pulling down a website or remove tools or resources used in their marketing campaigns.
You have to be very careful doing this. There's some people can do that. Accountants, innkeepers can do this. Repairers can do this. So that's called a lien, and it's a legal right to withhold something. It goes way back in law. So if you put your horse in a stable in the old horse and buggy days, and the horse was fed and sheltered for the night, and you didn't pay in the morning, they could keep your horse until you did pay. Same, you get someone to repair a device for you and you don't pay, they can keep it. Your accountant or your lawyer can keep your files until you pay. But other than those legal rights granted under statute, no, you don't have that right to do that. So be very careful. There's some ways you can exert an influence, but you need to be very careful. You can't say, we're not paying you, we're not giving that to you, because they'll say, well, we've paid for it, it's our property, therefore you're illegally keeping our property. and there's all sorts of things that can flow from that. So don't do that. Try and look for another solution.
Thank you, Mark. Bashir's also asked, is approaching a collection agency best, or should I go to fair trade?
Well, one costs you money, the other one doesn't. Um, and I'm just speaking very generally there. Try, and again, you're escalating things because collection agencies they ramp things up pretty quickly and they use high pressure tactics. Whether you want to be associated with that, because then that client talks to other clients, you get a bit of a reputation. Uh, Probably the softer approach is to go through fair trading, and but look, they're both valid options. And sometimes my suggestion would be to go to one. Other times, based on the facts, it'd be to go the other direction.
Thank you, Bashir. Thank you, Mark. Nancy Wang has asked, we have a client who is one of the directors of the group. The rest of the group pays their bills. The director is the only one not paying. We have sent many reminders to him, but he never replies. How can we get this sorted out?
Yeah, that is a really tough one, and I've I've seen a couple of disputes like that in the last few months. It's far more common than you would think. Um, there's no simple answer here. You really need to go back to the percentage of shares they hold, all the circumstances. But that would be a good thing if you're on the legal advice plan. Book a call and we can talk through your specific details there. Um, it does need to be more precise than I can give a quick answer here.
Thank you, Nancy. Thank you, Mark. Pratap has asked, would you send? Oh, yes. Just a reminder to everyone. Thank you, Pratap. Reminder, everyone. We will be sending all of the slides from today, as well as this recording to you all via email. So you should get that later on in the afternoon. Excuse me. Now, one last question, unless anyone else has something to throw in. We've got 6 minutes left. So Chris Haviland has asked, entertainment agency repeatedly is collecting funds for jobs I've done. Then I have to badger her for payment. Still several $1,000s owed from 3 months back. She has long received the payment, but used it elsewhere. Keeps apologizing, but I want my money. The arrangement will change, but I want to know how much I can threaten to sue for considering the time and continual energy spent with when, and I'm sorry. Um, I'm not
Yeah.
sure if you want to touch on this, Mark, or maybe we should just try to get Chris a call later on.
Sure. Well, you can certainly call us up. Let me touch on it briefly. A situation like this is back to that. I try to take the person out for a drink or a meal and then just explain, look, I've got bills. I really need this payment. Um, they probably, we're back to that thing about cash flow. They may have genuine cash flow. It may be that they just can't pay you. Want to, can't. You can understand that. But if you go there, who are you? Just put yourself in their shoes. If you've got a limited amount of money coming in and you've got money you've got to send out, are you going to send it to the person that treats you nicely, or are you going to send it um, to the person that rants and raves and threatens? You know, your aim is to get paid. So work through that. If you're still not getting paid, then we can talk about next steps. But try and work it out. There may be a legitimate reason why it's happening, or you can just change her priorities of payments.
Excellent. Well, it doesn't seem to have any further questions. And guys, whoever did post a question, thank you so much for sharing. Hopefully, you're able to get some solid clarity. If anyone does want me to contact you afterwards to see if we can get you on I guess, get the ball rolling with communication for your business. If there's any further inquiries you guys have, if it's within my power to get a response for you, I can. Otherwise, unfortunately, might have to suggest hopping on one of our plans if it's a bit more convoluted. But regardless, if there's no other questions, guys, thank you all so much for attending today. This will be, I believe, our last webinar of the year. Don't quote me on that, but I think that might be the case. Thank you all so much if you have attended on and off throughout the year. We will be in full swing again back in January, so we look forward to seeing you all there again. And hopefully you guys have some strong goals and ambitions moving forward at that time as well. And Mark, thank you so much. Absolute pleasure, sir. And I
Yeah,
will
thank you
I will
very
see
much.
you see you around the office.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.